Hello everyone, it's Calvar's32 Special. Welcome back to the channel. If you watched any of my, um, working on my gun bench videos, you might recognize, this saw here. It is a worm drive, Makita brand, what do they call it? Hold on, let's see if we can... I always call them a Skillsaw. That's technically its brand name. The Skill is, but I have it's a rotary blade saw. 7¼ inch blade, 15 amp. We'll just call it a Skillsaw, even though it's a Makita brand. There is actually a Skillsaw brand. It's actually, as I understand it, kind of the granddaddy design is from the Skill company, so that's what a lot of people generally refer to them as. The Skill version of this, that's an aluminum body, 15 amp, 7¼ inch blade saw. This one's about $120 on sale. Normally it was $130. The Skill version of it was $170, so I picked up this one. If you look at these saws, I got this at a local Home Depot. If you go into your local hardware store, you'll see ones that are like this, where the motor is actually in line with the blade, and then you'll see ones where the motor sits out next to the blade. When the motor sits out, that's called a side mount. This is a worm drive. This is a commercial design. Often comes with a more powerful motor, different transmission, a variety of, I prefer these. I come from a construction background family. I prefer the commercial grade tools just because what I'm used to, it's what I grew up on. Also, the balance on these is a lot better. This is, you can't really tell because it's sitting off the edge, but there you go. Kind of hanging off the edge. It's not plugged in, so it's not going to come on. But that's for this will follow a line. The worm drive, not just the Makita, the worm drive will follow a line easier when you're cutting, which is important because you want to keep your cut straight. I use this on that particular project to rip a tabletop. Actually, I think I have one of the pieces of scrap wood over here. I apologize for the mess. Maybe I don't. I could have sworn I had a scrap. Oh no, that's right. I tossed them in the backyard. My apologies. And I'm sorry for giving everybody motion sickness. If you're going to be using a saw like this very often, I suggest upgrading to spending the extra for the worm drive as opposed to the side mount. They're easier to keep in line. They're more powerful, generally speaking, so they cut easier. Especially you keep a good blade in them. This is the general purpose contractor blade that came with it, but it is a quality carbide tooth blade as opposed to the high-speed steel blades, which are the cheap blades. This will cut through whatever I need to cut through a lot easier. Safety-wise, you definitely want to be careful because that's where these do rotate, where they come up from the bottom in the front and then down in the back. Hence this directional arrow. And if they catch something, they can do what's called walk back, which is if it catches, it'll actually come back towards you and can cut you if you're not using it correctly. So that's for, again, I'm just going to hang this thing off the side. Sorry, I'm having to work out in the garage right now, so don't sit right in line with it. Always sit where your body is off center or off to one side a little bit. So if it walks back next to you. It doesn't take your leg off or cut your carotid artery or right. That's for carotids in the neck. That's for whatever the major arteries in the leg. Because if you cut that, you're gonna bleed out in a matter of seconds. So don't do that. I can do some demo videos on how to use it if people want. Those will require a little more planning. This was kind of an impromptu. I decided, I mentioned in the video from my workbench that I was going to do a review on this particular saw. As we can see, that's a fairly nasty blade. You don't want that going through your leg. You can pop that. It's not tight because I wasn't using it. So otherwise you want to crank this down pretty tight so that this is what locks it into depth. You can pop that loose, and and that's what this gauge is here. Depending on how thick you need or how deep this cut is, how thick the board is going to be. 1/4 inch thick wood, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and so on, up to, with it all the way down like it is now, it's probably 2.5 inch thick. I don't keep those tight because I just don't want to put the extra stress on the components. But that's how you adjust your depth, and you want to adjust these so that way when you're cutting, the very bottom teeth here are just below the edge of the wood. If it goes down too deep, that it increases your chances of it hitting something underneath that you didn't intend to, which can cause kickback. Let's see here. What are some of the other? The fence. This is this is the metal foot here, which any decent saw should have a metal foot. A quality contractor saw, you've got a second lever on the front of it. You can release it, and it allows you to change it so the blade, instead of cutting perpendicular to the wood, that you can cut it at different angles. 90% of cuts I've ever done, that blade's been 90 degrees to the wood, so that gives a perfectly straight cut. Certain applications, that's not what you want. These are fairly heavy, but I'm perfectly okay with that. And it's got a bunch of warning labels on it, covered in sawdust from cutting that board, cutting that tabletop, which had no nails in it or screws or any other metal. You gotta be careful about that. You don't want these. You do not want to cut in metal with these. And let's see here. Let me get this layer off of that. Yeah, so here's the. You saw it previously, but here's the tag on it that gives all the critical information. These are incredibly loud and will throw a lot of dust and chunks. Eye protection and ear protection are a must when wearing these. Be careful when you're cutting. The cord doesn't end up in front of the blade when it happens, because it can actually ride up on top of the blade. And it's like the foot can ride up on top of the cord, severing the cord or causing a kickback or this kind of thing. This is a saw a lot of people probably don't really have a lot of use for. You use these for cutting large sheet wood, generally speaking. Plywood is probably the most common. Well, plywood, kind of a generic term, whether it's a plywood or MDF or chipboard, or you can, with the right blade, you can cut the concrete siding. You can cut all kinds of other types of wood, because they do make variety. This is a general purpose, so there's a fairly low blade, low tooth count blade. They do make blades with fewer teeth on them. They're larger, that are meant for ripping longer cuts on plywood, but gives you a really rough, nasty edge. They also have blades that are finished blade with high number of very small teeth that give you a much cleaner, finer edge. But those ones do get hot if you try to cut long distance with them. So choose your blade wisely. Other than that, I prefer the commercial grade tools, because that's what I grew up using, from a contractor family. To me, the fact that it's balanced and cut straight and is in a lot of ways actually safer than the side mounts, because I've used an inexpensive Craftsman saw, and that was a side mount. And as you were cutting, the weight of it kept trying to tip it, to the motor side, so to the right hand side, as you're cutting, which not only messes with your cut because then it gets really wobbly, but also increases your chance of a kickback and have a blade that's spinning at a pretty good RPM with very sharp teeth and having it come back at you. I don't know what else to tell you guys about this. For the right applications, they're good saws. They are quite versatile because of the various blades, and are a major time and labor saver over the old hand saws. But, alright everyone, thanks for stopping by. Any questions, comments, drop them into the comment section, or you can go to Calaveras32special.com. There's a contact page on there where you can send me an email, as well as there's links to all my other social media accounts. This was purchased off my own money. This is not given to me. This is not sponsored. It's me just adding to my tool collection. Have a wonderful day. Okay, that was a false ending. Sorry about that. I realized something after I shut the camera off, so I didn't include something. Being a 15 amp motor, it's a high amperage, which is, a lot of your circuits in your house are going to be, kind of a 15 amp, you're going to have some 20s, but you're going to mostly 15s and less in your house. So you're going to be running one of these off of a power outlet in your house, or your garage preferably. Don't really be using these in the house. They don't run well off of generators, unless you have more of a commercial generator that's meant to run tools like this. The kind of generators most people use for powering lights or out camping or whatnot generally aren't going to produce enough power for these. So you're going to want to run these plugged into a building of some sort. And any extension cords you're going to want to use a heavy gauge power cord. So that way, because the smaller power cords at length, especially the longer they are, they lose power along the length of them just due to resistance. A natural of the metals that they use to make the cords. The resistance is going to drop. How much power comes out at one end as opposed to what goes into the other. Think of it as a garden hose. You're putting in at the beginning. You're putting in a certain amount of water, but you're not getting the same amount out the other end. With a garden hose, that's not going to happen, but you kind of get the idea. Or think of it as a garden hose with a kink in it and some leaks, so you're not going to get as much out the other end. Power cords are the same way. A thicker, heavier, higher quality power cord, it won't lose as much at the other end. So that's what you're going to want to run these on, is a heavy power cord. Should have included that in the first part. Thanks for sticking around for the end. Talk to you guys later. Bye. I'd like to thank everyone for stopping by the channel. If you want to see more of my content, I encourage you to check out my website, Calaveras32special.com. Links below in the description. I also encourage you to check out gunchannels.com. Online, two-way community, set up and operated about 5 years ago at this point, by G-Webs, or Mr. Gun Websites. He is a avid activist for, our two-way rights, so that's where I encourage you to stop by there, as well as his website, gearwebsites.com, where where a lot of his financing comes from, to help him, fight for our rights. I hope you guys are, willing to stop by, both of those websites. Oh, and before I get on mine, I have my Spreadshirt store link and my Patreon link over there for anyone who is so inclined as to helping out the channel. Much appreciated. And anything I decide any money I get over there, I'll be putting back into the channel, and I'll be giving my patrons a chance to chime in as to what they think I should be using it on. I want to say again, thank you very much for stopping by. Have a wonderful night.